A journalist inexperienced in international affairs is sent to Europe on the edge of World War II and becomes entangled in colliding forces trying to either keep peace or trigger conflict in the 1940 drama Foreign Correspondent. And that's the movie we're digging up this week on Movie Bones.
Now look, Mr. Powers, if you're going to fire me, you can scrap the intelligence test. It's perfectly okay with me. I can get a job on any other newspaper in town within an hour. So long.
Wait a minute. Nobody fired you.
Huh?
How would you like to cover the biggest story in the world today?
Give me an expense account and I'll cover anything.
I'll give you an expense account.
Okay, what's the story?
Europe.
Well, I'm afraid I'm not exactly equipped, sir, but I could do some reading up.
No reading up. I like you just as you are, Mr. Jones. What Europe needs is a fresh, unused mind.
Foreign correspondent, huh?
No, reporter. I don't want correspondence. I want news. You think you could dig up some news in Europe?
I'd be very happy to try, sir.
Hey, what kind of movie is this, Ryan? I mean, is it a drama? Is it a comedy? Is it suspense noir? I mean, I've gotten pieces of all of it. There's romance in there too, but I counted about 5 different genres.
Believe it or not, the answer to your question's just yes. I'm not kidding you either, actually. It really is more of a yes answer. He kind of just, I wouldn't say he threw them all in there, but he mixed all of those genres into this movie. A lot of people were saying this is, all this stuff was in this movie. Drama, suspense, comedy, romance, all of those things he did intentionally put those into this movie.
I can see them in a very kind of on the surfacey level. I mean, Charade was really a great and I would consider almost brilliant blending of things that on the surface, it makes it feel almost deceptively easy in a movie like that, how well it can come off. But in this one, I kind of got the opposite impression. It felt in a lot of ways that, they were just kind of, it was like flipping a switch sometimes. And I think part of the problem is it doesn't kind of clue the audience in as to when it's what you're supposed to feel in a given moment, because it just kind of changes without any kind of signaling. I don't know how else to better say it. I mean, I can give an example. At one point, you have this correspondent dude. He's gotten wrapped up in this struggle between this kind of, cloak and dagger business behind the scenes. And the guy he thinks is a friend is not a friend. And he put an assassin with him that he thinks is there to protect him. But he's looking for an opportunity to off him. And he takes him up, I guess, in the Tower of London or something, and is getting ready to push him out. You have all these little comedic interruptions of, it's like, oh, there's someone else there. He can't kill him now. I know what they're trying to do, but it's like, it feels, because it's trying to do suspense at the same time. And I think that's the problem is like, it doesn't, in a movie like The Pink Panther for something, that the attempts on Clouseau's life are going to be bungled and it's going to be funny. All right. You're never really worried about Clouseau. It's like, the kind of movie that you're dealing with and the kind of scenes you're dealing with. But here it's like, you're supposed to feel like he's in danger, but at the same time, the assassin is kind of being, to her. It's not funny and it's not suspenseful. It just it works against itself in this case. That was my impression. I mean, did you feel like that too in that scene or in others,
I came across this one person, and I'm going to agree with them, that, when they were reviewing the film themselves, they felt like that part, just that whole assassin scene could have just been nixed from the film. After thinking about it, I was like, yeah, I absolutely agree with that statement. It's a comedic scene. And, it ends in a comedic way where, one of the next scenes is our main character saying, oh, I can't believe I walked out of the way just in time. That's very slapstick. We know that because we've talked about Hitchcock a little bit before. He's such a polarizing figure. Half the things that he wants to do, he either doesn't, it's like, he either doesn't get to do them the exact way he wants to do them, or he winds up looking back on it himself and going, I would not have done it. I would not have done it that way. I was watching an interview with him, actually, about this movie. And one of the things that he said he would just be okay if he never even actually had to make a film. And it was like, it wasn't confusing by what he said. I'm not adding enough to it yet, but he likes just figuring it all out. He likes to figure out how he's going to do it all. And then he's like, if I didn't have to deal with everything else, I wouldn't do it. I'd just figure it out and go on to the next thing. And that's just kind of part of his process. I mean, one of the things about him is, we're talking about story, yes, his stories are, he's got really good stories out there. He cares less about the story itself and more about how am I going to film this? How is it going to...
And I get that. And there's a part of me that kind of sympathizes with that mentality in terms of like, because my brain likes to pick things apart too. And specifically in problem solving ways of how to get like in this podcast, I produce this podcast. And, in the process of learning how to do that, I like the process of figuring out how I'm going to solve certain problems. In fact, that's almost kind of its own joy in a way. And I can really sympathize with that as long as the end product is something that, is great too. But at the same time, and this is a different part of my brain too, it's like I also do art and draw on the side. And I also, a satisfaction on the creative, not just problem solving bit, because that is always part of creativity itself, but also in the emotional aspect. And I've had to kind of work myself up toward that. So I see myself as actually having grown because of that, from the more intellectual side of creation to the more emotional side of it. But yeah, it's like when it comes back to this, it's like, and you can see him playing with ideas and maybe just kind of like throwing things together, but not, and just kind of experimenting. Maybe that's kind of what he's doing here. I will say that when Hitchcock is trying to be funny, and this is because I have seen a Hitchcock quote unquote comedy. Have you seen like, what was it called? The Trouble with Harry?
I don't think I have.
Okay. If you ever get a chance to, I mean, I think you should see it once at least. For me, it's like, it demonstrates to me why I think I would never vibe with Hitchcock on this comedy. It just does not play to me. And I don't know, I think the film itself is somewhat kind of divisive in terms of its audience response. It's love it or hate it, and either you get it or you don't. And I am certainly in the camp that it just does not vibe with me. And so when he's doing comedy here too, there's another scene too. Do you remember, here's a part, you have the hero's kind of buddy sidekick, kind of sort of, he picks up along the way. Don't ask me to pronounce his name. It's got two F's in the front of it. And I don't.
Oh, I actually came across someone that that talked about why that name was that name, but I forgot what the guy said. There was a uniqueness to it. Like, there is definitely a uniqueness to that name.
Well, it is unique for sure. I mean,
yeah. I
will probably forget this movie in the future, but it's like that probably the last thing I'll forget about it was the guy's name. But this guy is supposed to be kind of like his, I don't even know what role he plays. It's like, is he another correspondent? Is he kind of a spy-ish type person? I was never clear on that point either. But he's sitting in a room. He's captured by the bad guys. And the bad guys in the same room have this important dude who has information that they need. And the guy who is like, the FF guy is like, he looks like he's going to start trouble to try and upend things, to try to turn the tables on his captors or to free the other guy. You don't know what, but you see something there boiling underneath. Hitchcock chose that moment to turn the camera away, to cut away to the people outside looking up at the room outside. And you see the violence in small form, in silhouette of the scuffle that's going on as a result of what he just set up. And it's like, I wanted to see what he was going to do to make that happen. And it's like, you cut away. And it wasn't the only time that Hitchcock did this in the film. There's another scene later where it's like the ultimate bad guy. He's the guy who's the traitorous turncoat. He has his daughter who's the love interest. And of course, it's supposed to be this conflict because the good guy has to be against but he's saying that it's like all this treachery, I could live with that better. And having done what I've done, if I could just hear what you have to say next. And it's like, and his daughter, so what his daughter says in response to his revelation of that he's been this traitor guy is important to him. And I'm waiting. It's like, here's an actual dramatic moment. And I didn't have many moments of that I was going to connect with, but it's like, this is at least something I could connect with. And they cut away to a scene with the hero guy and his compatriots in the cabin further down in the same plane. And I'm like, I don't understand why we cut away right there. I could have actually vibed with something finally with this character and understood a situation. And it was so frustrating for me, especially if I care more too. The movie didn't give me a lot to care about in that sense, but it's like, at least here, give me something. You teased me with it. Don't drop the ball right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. We got like to a certain part of the film and I'm like, I don't really know why we're here 100%. I don't know. I kept thinking like we were going to super uncover this like grand conspiracy.
Yeah.
Like I kept half expecting a Nazi like an actual Nazi, to like run around the corner, like, you know, and like I still was like, when it didn't happen, I mean, I wasn't disappointed, but I was like, okay, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure what's going on. A reason why that's a problem for me is because Hitchcock does all of these fantastic things in this film. There is some very well-renowned, famous scenes in this movie. The umbrella scene in the rain with the assassin, like that was fantastic. The chase where they go to the windmill and all the things that they do with the windmill, that in of itself was fantastic. If you find people to talk about this movie, this is a lot of times what they're talking about. I actually listened to this man talk about how he did the plane crash scene, and that's brilliant. I'm not against things in this day and age like CGI. I think we can do different things with it to make it better, and maybe we overly rely on it. But I mean, just the things that Hitchcock was able to do, those scenes prop this movie up. Like, if you don't have scenes like this, you have in my opinion, you've got a middling story that's not worth thinking about too much. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's poorly acted. I'm just saying that this is one of those times where, think about Avatar. Avatar, not The Last Airbender, but Avatar, the Blue Alien movie.
The Blue
Avatar.
Alien one, yeah.
There's a lot of people out there that said the story itself was kind of meh. But people watched that movie, the first one anyways. I have not seen the second one, so I'm not going to talk about that one. When the first movie came out, a lot of people weren't talking about the story. They were talking about what they visually looked at. That's foreign correspondence, in my opinion.
I see totally where you're going with that, because it's like, if you ask someone, 5 years down the line that they saw the movie, it's like, yeah, I went to see that. And apparently most everyone did. It's like, well, yeah, but can you tell me anything about the story? And it's like, yeah, it wasn't so much. It was like, but the visuals, that's what really sinks in. So, but yeah, it's totally the case with this movie. Even from the opening shot, it's like there's a miniature of this newspaper building in New York with the thing rotating on the top, kind of like the Daily Planet. It made me think of the Daily Planet from Superman.
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, that's kind of a neat, cool miniature. It's detailed enough and evocative enough that it really communicates well. Another thing you mentioned that really got to me too is like, do you watch reaction videos by any chance?
It depends on what I'm dealing with, and by dealing with, I mean it's just like if I'm in the mood for it. Mm-hmm. And depends on what kind of reaction it is.
My wife doesn't get this, but it's like, I will sometimes, as a guilty pleasure, I'll just tune into these reaction videos because I'm a Gen Xer. I come from the age when it's like, I grew up with Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones and Star Wars as they're being released, okay? So to see people who are like generations younger than me discovering these films for the first time, which only had practical effects, you don't have the digital CGI back then. And to be able to see directors do so much without CGI, and they're just kind of left in awe, and I'm like, yeah. And those are stories that actually did move me too. It wasn't just the special effects. You actually had stories that were more coherent than, and more long lasting and stick with you than like either the movies like Avatar or like Foreign Correspondent. These actually had stories that you could attach to as much as the visuals. When it came to the make you feel like with the plane crash that you're in danger with these characters. In the middle of that scene, you still had this one woman. It stuck out to me. There's a woman who's a nameless woman. She's going to complain to the people back at home for this plane trip in a very British way, in a very kind of understated British way, right before flak hits the plane and she's killed outright. And I'm like, what am I supposed to feel here? It almost feels like Airplane,
So this is something I heard. I actually believe that this movie was supposed to end with the plane crash. And no one survives it. I think the movie was they were supposed to be flying and they were going to get shot down, and that's how the movie was going to end. Because he wanted to end it on I don't want to say dark note. I forgot what they said, but I think the person said dark note. He wanted to end it on a very melancholy, very dark note. This is my personal belief. I think the movie was supposed to end with them going down with the plane.
I mean, that would have been a bold choice.
It would have been a bold choice, but that, instead we get that last scene. And the last scene, I think it's a fine speech.
Yeah. And if it wasn't for all the other stuff we've been talking about, that would have been a great, bold choice. I think, if I wish it was able to have been stuck with that, because I think it would have had a better impact. The film is, I wish the film had just been more focused. It does feel more, like you said, like he's just trying to solve problems than he is trying to kind of craft something that's more coherent. Where does this come down for me? I mean, if I'm going to be like honest, I was thinking throughout the movie, this is kind of a don't look at it for me. Talking to you, I'm not going to actually formally change my rating, but I will say it's a high don't look at it. It was just too frustrating for me overall. I mean, despite all that you said, it's fascinating stuff behind the scenes. As an emotional viewer, you're just trying to connect with something. And I could not connect with anything that was kind of going on the screen, either because you were constantly being asked to change your focus. I noticed there's a whole long string of period of time where you don't even see the main character. The main character becomes like a side character at some point. Yeah. And that was kind of frustrating for me. It was all these things kind of adding together. Although there were a few fun moments. Like I said, there's that moment with the trajectory of the guy who fell out the tower. Like, they put that in the newspaper, on the front of the newspaper. It's like, that's funny. It's darkly funny, and I don't know if I'm supposed to laugh or not. And then there's the thing where it's like, the guy falls out of the window, the Floffit guy, he falls out the window, crashes through an awning, and right in front of his the authorities, and he says, "Follow me, man." And it's like, is this a Monty Python sketch? Kind of a thing. I mean, it does make me want to go back and see, there's a Mel Brooks film that parodied Hitchcock, called High Anxiety. It kind of takes all of Hitchcock's films and kind of takes the moments of, I want to see if there's any of his references and that references this movie now. But that's about the limit of my involvement with the film at this point. So, but I kind of think you might be higher than me. Tell me I'm wrong. Are you a little higher than me in this?
Yeah, I'm going to be higher. And it's not because of the story. It's just because of all of the other things that I've talked about. There's actually more. I'm not going to go into depth here, but it does wind up kicking off a string of different movies. I think it influenced Notorious. Apparently, forget the actual name of the
Notorious. Movie. I do like Notorious.
Apparently, I forget the name of this movie, but apparently this movie was stolen, I think by MGM Studios, basically stolen by MGM Studios. And there's like again, it's not shot for shot, but it's the whole movie done again in its own way, and it stars Paul Newman. This movie was made, and the movie itself is happening at the beginning of this Second Great War. And no one knows to the extent of what it's going to be yet, how it's going to unfold all the way, how it's going to change the world. And because it does, we're still dealing with the ramifications of World War II to this day.
And I will say, just as a side note, related to what you're saying, is that I kind of wish, because of that moment in time, they were willing to add a little bit more specificity to what everyone would have known at the time. Like, they never mentioned the name Nazis, and everything is very kind of, as in the beginning they talked about, let's see, this foreign stuff, and according to a high official, kind of like referencing not to just too broadly. I wish they'd gotten a little bit more texture and detail. Maybe they thought it was too dangerous to do that, too on the nose, maybe. But I would have actually appreciated at least a little bit of texture along those lines. But that's another little small complaint. But go ahead.
All that to say, I did like this film. I'm not the biggest fan of the story, but because of all the other things I say, this is not a trust me film. But this is very, very much belongs in a museum for a variety of reasons. So that's where I would give this movie. Do I think you should watch it a bunch? No, but I actually think you should watch it at least once and maybe rewatch certain scenes. And this is a video of this movie. You can actually, this movie, obviously it's free on Tubi. It's also free on YouTube. And there's specific scenes that you can just watch on YouTube. But I'd watch the movie in its entirety just once. Maybe you get something different out of it than we do. But to see these, especially for any of you out there that may be like young or aspiring filmmakers, this would be a movie that you're watching so they can help you understand what people back in the day did so that we can get to where we are now.
So anyway, that's our verdicts, guys. So at this time, we like to remind our listeners out there that if you're having a good time with Ryan and me dusting off these old movies in search of celluloid treasure, do like, subscribe, comment, and of course, follow us on your podcast purveyor of choice. Tell us what you think we got wrong because we're not perfect, and clue us in on a few titles you'd like us to see cover in future episodes. As long as they are available for free on Tubi, because this adventure comes with no strings attached. And boy, am I excited for next week, Ryan. I am really excited for next week because you have not seen this movie. I have. I will say that up front. I am eager to see or hear what you have to say about it. So go ahead and tell the folks what we're going to be seeing next week, because I'm excited.
I actually have some work to do before I get to watch this movie next week. And not next week, but this is a part of a trilogy. It's the last one, I think, part of the trilogy, right?
It is, but at the same time...
Now, they could be standalone. Yes, standalone in its own way. Clint Eastwood, Lee Van Cleef, Eli Wallach, directed by Sergio Leone. In the heat of the Civil War, a lone wolf, a mercenary, and a Mexican outlaw engaged in a lethal pursuit for $200,000 in buried Confederate gold. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And I can tell you that we're going to talk about a lot. I haven't even watched this film personally, but I have seen people talk about this film, and I'm going to talk about what those people talk about.
And I'm sure even if you haven't seen the film, I know you haven't seen the film, but you have. I would bet money that you've heard the music.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, okay. Because and I will resist any temptation to do the whistling or any other kind of cues in next week's episode, because, look, anyone who's covered this movie on YouTube, they've done that already. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try not to do that. In fact, I may just have to avoid using the intro music just because I don't know if I'll get copyright strike at some point because of it. It's that well known. And with something like Foreign Correspondent, no one's going to... I can't see anyone bothering very much about a copyright strike, but this one, I could actually see that happening. So I am super looking forward to this. So do join us on that one. That'll be fun. So yeah, I can't think of anything else to say, Ryan. So well, I guess we'll see you guys next week. And Ryan, I'll see you next week.
See you next week.
All right, folks.
Follow me.